This episode is brought to you by Cox Contour TV. Find the entertainment you love with Contour TV and Contour Stream Player. Learn more at cox.com/contour.
Coming up.
My nephew didn't have a chance to have his day in court for his attorney to prove his innocence.
For Vault Studios, I'm Will Johnson. You're listening to The Daily Crime. In March of last year, a high school senior and his stepsister were fatally gunned down in a New Orleans neighborhood.
Edna Carr Sr. Caleb Johnson was weeks away from graduating when he was gunned down last year along with his stepsister, Breonna Brown.
And now, almost 1 year to the day that one of those victims was buried, another funeral is being planned, and another court case for murder.
21-year-old Hollis Carter was just minutes away from a court hearing Wednesday morning when he was fatally shot and his mother wounded.
According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, 1 in every 5 children killed in traffic crashes in the U.S. was a pedestrian. That's why 3M is working alongside local governments and NGOs to help improve crosswalk visibility and traffic markings in school zones, in a worldwide initiative to provide kids with a safe walk to school and access to the education they deserve. To learn more and take action, visit 3m.com/schoolzonesafety. 3M Science. Applied to life.
I'm joined by WWL-TV investigative reporter Mike Perlstein. Mike, thanks for being here.
Appreciate it. Happy to join.
Mike, this all started in March of 2021. Tell us about this double homicide and where it took place.
So Algiers is a part of New Orleans, but it is separated from the rest of the city by the Mississippi River on what we call the West Bank. So that's a very large bridge across the river to a very old neighborhood known as Algiers. The neighborhood in which the double shooting and ended up being a double murder occurred was in the lower portion of Algiers, as it's called, Lower Algiers.
And in that shooting, a young man who's still in high school was killed along with his 25-year-old stepsister. Can you tell us about the victims and then what came out of that?
So victims were, as you mentioned, Caleb Johnson, who was a senior just weeks away from graduating from high school, and then a stepsister, a little bit older, age 25, named Breonna Brown. And the police report account, as well as what everyone in the neighborhood and families on both sides actually agree, that there was going to be a sale of a handgun, and somewhere along the line, that gun deal took a bad turn and then ended up in the shooting of Caleb Johnson and Breonna Brown. Caleb died almost immediately. Breonna Brown lingered for a while before she passed away, making this a double murder. Now, supposedly, Caleb and Breonna had arranged the meeting to purchase a gun. There's some dispute over what happened next, but that rather than hand over the money to buy the gun, there was some dispute and then an attempt to take the gun without paying anything, and they end up both shot and ultimately killed.
Police caught up with the suspect, and his name is Hollis Carter. Tell us how they were able to identify Carter as the suspect.
Right. So Hollis Carter was actually a classmate and friend of Caleb Johnson. They lived in the same neighborhood, and there was somebody else with Hollis Carter, to this day, unnamed person who was there, in the process of this transaction of a firearm. What is kind of a sad and tragic twist, again, that, Caleb and Hollis Carter, both at the same high school, were friends. Their families knew each other, not that well, but knew each other. And that is actually how they made the contact to get together for this supposed purchase of a gun. And very, very quickly after the shooting, as many of these things go in New Orleans, which is just a big, small town where everybody knows everybody, the word of Hollis Carter being involved quickly circulated. Police caught up to him, and allegedly he gave a confession, and that led to his arrest initially on a one count of second-degree murder and a count of attempted murder. That changed to 2 counts of second-degree murder when Breonna Brown passed away.
Hollis Carter remained behind bars for 5 months, is my understanding, and then was let out and was working, had a job, and was on home arrest leading up to a trial that was due to happen sometime this year, right?
That's right. His arrest was in April of 2021. The bail amount was set at $375,000, which for a double murder was actually a little on the low side by New Orleans standards. His family cobbled together the money to pay a bail bondsman. He was released in September, some 5 months later, with some pretty strict conditions of home incarceration with electronic monitoring with an ankle bracelet. And by all accounts, he adhered to that. He made every court appearance. According to his family, he worked a couple of part-time jobs for which he, was granted permission to leave the house for that and for court appearances and for school. So among the many tragic circumstances in this particular case was that when he was shot and killed, he was on his way to his next court appearance.
Right, which brings us up to this latest development. He was on his way to the court appearance, and from what we understand from his lawyer, was planning to go to trial and say that the confession was a false confession. We can talk more about that, but what do we know about his being ambushed on the way to a hearing?
Well, the circumstances of that tragic shooting, which, like more and more shootings and other violent crimes, was captured on a surveillance camera in which his mother, along with Hollis, were in a car leaving their neighborhood, had really only left a couple minutes earlier to go to their court hearing, which is about 10 miles from where they live. But within a couple minutes, a black pickup truck can be seen on the video pulling beside them. Somebody leans out with a rifle, fires multiple shots into the car, striking and killing Hollis Carter in the head, died instantly. And Hollis Carter's mother, struck several times, was actually able at the scene, with the help of a bystander, to call her family and sister, rush to the hospital, where she remains today more than a week later, trying to survive, according to the family, 6 bullet wounds that entered her back, did some damage to lung and diaphragm, and she remains in serious condition in the hospital.
And police have caught up with a suspect in that shooting as well now, based largely, I would assume, on that video evidence.
In fact, almost, completely based on the video evidence. They made an arrest very quickly, less than 48 hours later. The video not only, provided a clear picture of the truck, but of the truck's license plate, which they were able to track back to a gentleman, 46-year-old, named Bokio Johnson. Bokio Johnson is the father of Caleb Johnson, one of the 2 victims in that double murder a year ago. The police served a warrant at his house. They found a rifle magazine as well as an empty rifle case, and that, along with a statement that he allegedly made to detectives, which is in the police report, that he and only he had driven his truck on that day, was enough to secure a warrant for second-degree murder, as well as the attempted murder of Hollis Carter's mother.
It was a night like any other. You ate some dinner with the family, chatted for a bit about school and work. Everything seemed normal. Then suddenly, you were gone. But they didn't need to worry. You just snuck off for a second to play Best Fiends. Best Fiends is the mobile puzzle adventure game you want to play for hours on end, even when you only have a few moments to spare. From the vibrant artwork and adventure-packed storyline to the cute collectible characters and supercharged power-ups, Best Fiends is designed to be the most obsession-worthy game ever. There are literally thousands of levels, plus tons of in-game events added every month for even more ways to win. And the best part is, you can play anytime, anywhere. No Wi-Fi, no problem. Of course, people may start to wonder about your mysterious disappearances until they see how much fun you're having. Download your new favorite getaway, Best Fiends, for free today on the App Store or Google Play. You'll even get $5 worth of in-game rewards when you reach level 5. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends.
Sustainability is more than a movement. It's an opportunity. Introducing the Fidelity Climate Action Fund, which invests in companies with potential for strong growth and positive impact. Evaluated by the Fidelity Research Team. Invest in the green transition at fidelity.com/sustainable.
Before investing in any mutual fund, consider its investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Contact Fidelity for a prospectus or a summary prospectus containing this information. Please read it carefully. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE, SIPC.
Mike, so many lives now caught up and affected by this and lost as well. I know you talked to Hollis Carter's sister, who spoke about the fact that he was headed to a trial, presumably, and was hoping to clear his name.
And the circumstances of that, largely through court filings and Hollis Carter's attorney as well, it wasn't that they're saying the confession was completely false. However, if you look at sort of the nuances of what they were saying as a defense in trying to clear his name and set the record straight, Hollis Carter did admit the whole scenario of bringing a gun to make a gun sale to a friend that he knew from school, and that things went south, and that he was present but did not fire the gun and those fatal gunshots that killed 2 people. That was a bit of a detraction from his original statement, but his attorney and family are stating that he was ready and prepared to go to court to state that he was, I guess, kind of taking the blame out of fear for the real gunman in that case, who has yet been unnamed. Police have never announced any suspects. And, there are some people, he had a, pretty prominent private defense attorney who takes on some high-profile cases, very insistent that they were going to be able to present the kind of evidence to back up his claim that he did not pull the trigger of those fatal gunshots.
Does the investigation continue at this point? Have you been able to ask police about that?
There are so many threads and in this cycle of violence, some of the elements are basically moot. Going forward, obviously, with the prosecution of Hollis Carter is stopped with his death. The case against the person he was with, who his attorney as well as himself were stating actually fired the fatal gunshots, that remains an open case, the person at large. But, with the death of Hollis Carter, that may forever go unsolved. I don't even believe that there was a whole lot of chatter, just in street talk about who that might have been. So, yes, there is now, of course, a pending murder charge against Bokio Johnson, father of Caleb Johnson, in the shooting and killing of Hollis Carter. That will go forward. His attorney, just issued a statement of his innocence. Don't jump to conclusions, despite the strong initial evidence. But some of the cases and blame may very well have died with Hollis Carter.
And Mike, you also spoke to a local activist who talked about this cycle of violence and what appears to be a case of what some call street justice.
And yeah, let me tell you, I've covered criminal justice in New Orleans for quite a while. This very tragically is nothing new. What might be particularly gripping about this particular cycle of violence is that so much of it played out in ways that, the street and families on both sides picked up very quickly, naming names, police following threads of very strong evidence, made quick arrests. So this cycle of violence, these retaliatory shootings, were able to be exposed for the community to see, when in reality this is a long-standing problem here in New Orleans. There is sadly a lot of street justice where people take matters into their own hands. There are many factors involved in that, beginning with, I guess, almost code of silence, not to snitch when it comes to revealing information to the police, but nevertheless, a vengeance that comes in the way of street justice is just a fact of life in New Orleans. Once again, being the big, small town that it is, word does tend to circulate rather quickly, even if the information ultimately, isn't all completely, verified through strong forensic evidence. People have bounties on their heads, and revenge killings are carried out, I would say, on, obviously, a regular basis, probably far more frequently in a city with a very high homicide rate to start with. The kinds of retaliation shootings, and once again, we've been able to, report deeply on some of them. I would say most go unresolved by official police, investigations. But this is something, as our activists pointed out, has tracked these kinds of cases for many years, and it's just a sad staple of life in New Orleans.
That the justice system did not work for them, and perhaps someone may have taken something into his own hands. Everybody thinks that the power is with the elected officials, but it's with the people. The people are going to have to decide, do we want more of our people dying in the streets? It's just that simple.
My thanks to Mike Perlstein, investigative reporter at WWL-TV in New Orleans. Thanks for listening to The Daily Crime. Be sure to check out our weekly show, True Crime Chronicles, available wherever you listen to podcasts. For Vault Studios, I'm Will Johnson.